Okay, Assalamualaikum and good day to all our participants on online training program 5G implementation practices and case studies. I am Dr. Omar Abdul Aziz and I'll be chairing today's training session. So before we start our program, I do hope everyone is in good health, everyone is in a positive mood and could gain a lot from our training today. Today, we'll be presenting our 7th module on public acceptance of 5G rollout. And we will talk on 5G rollout from the consumer perspective. And we'll look into some topics or some issues that are raised by the publics, including on health and safety, such that they began to resist the deployment or rollout of 5G infrastructure and technologies. We will look also into educating the public and some case studies. Okay, so our presenter, our speaker today is Mr. Chua Tien, who is a lecturer in School of Electrical Engineering UTM. Mr. Chua Tien is also a research fellow in Wireless Communication Center UTM. He holds a bachelor degree in electrical engineering and a master degree in wireless communication engineering. Currently, he is pursuing his PhD degree, and his current research focus is on radio frequency RF radiation measurement from 5G infrastructure. So Mr. Chua Tien has a vast experience in university and industry collaboration works. Previously, he has conducted consultation works on RF exposure from telecommunication infrastructure from 2G up to 5G with clients including Malaysia Commission of Multimedia and Communication (MCMC) and also Tenaga Nasional Berhad (TNB), which is the sole electric utility company in Peninsular Malaysia. Mr. Chua Tien also had carried out research works and consultation with vendors including Huawei and also Ericsson's in the area of mobile networks, quality of services and quality of experience. And he had also been invited quite frequently, very frequently, by MCMC as well as TNB and also Suruhanjaya Tenaga or Energy Commission of Malaysia to talk on RF exposure. Okay, so before we start, okay, I just would like to remind our flow of program for today's training is as previously. We'll have a 1 hour training and discussion with the speaker, Mr. Chua, followed by another 15 minutes of question and answer session. So, Mr. Chua Tien, are you ready with the presentation?
Hi, Dr. Omar. Yes. Let me share my slide first.
Okay, so I stop sharing my slide.
You can see my slides.
Yes, Mr. Chua, quite clear. Okay, so without further ado, I'll pass the session to Mr. Chua. So the session is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Omar. A very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our Module 7 on public acceptance of 5G rollout. First of all, I'm Chua. As mentioned by Dr. Omar just now, I'm working with UTM. I'm a lecturer and also I'm doing research under what they call Wireless Communication Center. So one of my research interests is in RF EMF exposure measurement. That is why how I involved in this work. Today, I believe throughout these 5G courses, we look at a different way to deploy a 5G network, different strategy to implement 5G network using different spectrum. And also we look at the application of 5G use cases. Now, from this module, we'll be looking at the concern of the general public regarding the implementation of 5G in their residential area or their surroundings. So while people are happy with 5G comings, we can see we have a more use cases that is previously is impossible to be implemented in a mobile environment. With the 5G, we can do that. But then at the same time, a part of the community, they are very concerned that the RF radiation or the RF energy radiated by the base station will be harmful or will be hazardous to their health or cause any impact to their health in long term. So that what is I going to look together. My planning of the module today, there will be 4 sections. We are going to present in 60 minutes. Then if you have any questions, please welcome to leave your question in the chat box, or later during the Q&A sessions, you can turn on your mic to ask. Firstly, I will talk on the consumer perspective. That's mean on the community perspective on the rollout of 5G. For us here in Malaysia, we haven't rolled out 5G yet, but we did a few pilot projects back in year 2019. At that time, we also have some response from the community, and some country worldwide, European and American and other part of the world have rolled out 5G. We will have a look how the public response, okay, on the in terms of the radiation issue. Then second part, we'll go into the EMF health and safety concern. What actually public is concerned about? Why they worry about EMF radiation or RF radiation from the 5G? Why, especially when it comes to 5G, the resistance or the what they call their oppositions to the technology is more severe or more prominent compared to the legacy system. So we have a look at topic number 2. Then we'll move into the third part. So we understand their concern, we understand the problem. As a part of the industry stakeholders, we should work together to address the issue. So one key element is public education. So everyone have a role to play. So we have a look at what actually we can do together. And lastly, I will look at 2 case studies of what have been done by our national regulator, and also one example from the regulator from UK, what they have done in order to help to create public awareness or do public education so that the public is well aware of what actually is RF radiation is about and how will that impact their health, whether there's any what they call health concern that they should worry about. So basically that's my planning today. So let's straight away dive into the first part on the consumer perspective and also the public resistance on the 5G rollout. So while everyone is happy 5G is coming, especially those technology savvy who what they call likes technology, but then as a part of the community, they will be worried about 5G. For example, when Malaysia, we roll out a few pilot projects to test the use cases in 2019. So during that time, there's already what you see on here is a reporting in the news, November in Penang. So we have a group of concerned residents because from what they read, and from what they hear from the social media or from the news outlet, they are worried that 5G base station will cause cancer. 5G base station will cause their health, a lot of health impact, especially to their children. So there's a protest, there's a memorandum submitted to the local authority requesting to stop 5G implementation. The same thing happened in different countries rolling out in different scales. For example, in California, US, when year 2019, when they tried to roll out 5G, there's a lot of community movement saying that 5G opponents cite health concern and urging the city to limit the wireless antenna. That's mean to either to reduce the transmission power or to stop the installation of base station. Same thing happened in Australia. The example here is in Blue Mountains. So there's a movement on stopping 5G. Then this is in Switzerland. So Switzerland is one of the first nation to roll out 5G. So there's many what they call concern on EMF, a very what they call major drive to stop 5G implementation in their country. So that is also one good example for us to understand when we actually want to roll out a new technology, it's to be expected, there will be some resistance in the community. So it is our task to actually understand their concern and then try to help them to understand the issue and try to answer the public concern. So not only community, not only in general public, from the expert community, for example, among the medical expert or biological expert, for example, here medical doctors in Germany. There's also effort. This is just an example that's happening in different part of the world. This example in year 2019, a group of doctors saying 5G is deteriorating human health, so they should be avoided. They should be stopped. The 5G should be stopped. And scientists community. This is from US. What they call director of Center of Family and Community Health in University of California, Berkeley. So he has a website and he has what they call medical studies or biological studies that claim that 5G is not safe. Okay, 5G is not safe. Then he claimed that more than 500 studies have found harmful biologic or health effects from exposure to radio frequency radiation from 5G base station. So this is what we can see from the differences for 5G implementation compared to our legacy 2G, 3G, 4G. The resistance to RF or the concern on RF radiation has been there since beginning of 2G. So if you still remember, there's a news or video or images circulating in Facebook or social media at that time or newspaper at that time saying that base station can cook bread. Base station can cook popcorn. The radiation level can cook popcorn. So that starting from there, there's a movement to stop base station. But then when it comes to 5G, the response will be more prominent, more drastic because of these the different types of new elements or new technology that we introduce into the 5G infrastructure, which we'll look at in second part later. And community movement due to this misinformation or due to this effort worldwide, what they read in the news, there's also a movement to stop when after we distribute the information, the community still do want to accept. So you can see they will link 5G to a lot of other problems. For example, at the beginning of 2020, at that time when the COVID outbreak picked up, so at that time in UK, there is a news circulating in social media saying that COVID is spread or due to 5G base station. The community or the what I call concerned public worry about that, so they go and burn down the base station. So this is in very recent 2020. So that forced WHO to come out stating that 5G has nothing to do, a 5G base station has nothing to do with COVID. Okay. Then there's also websites. If you go and search on our search engine, you search for EMF help, you search for keyword EMF cancer, mobile phone cancer, then you see a lot of news out there, a lot of websites out there stating that, for example, this one, there's a, with a lot of subscribers, the website is, the address is given here, stating that explosive talk on 5G coronavirus connection by alleged former senior executive from a telco. Then the 5G court case, then Brussels become the first major city to halt 5G. And all those things, there are many what I call conspiracy theory going on in this website. And this is where general public get that information from. They don't like to go to WHO. They don't like to go to ICNIC website. This is the website they would like to go to. Then we need to understand this so that we can address the concern. So the first outbreak of 5G concern on COVID, 5G concern on the EMF radiation and the health issue is when Netherlands, I think this is one of the first images circulated in social media regarding the risk of 5G to health. So at that time, I think end of 2018 and beginning of 2019, there's a 5G testing in Hague, Netherlands, before they roll out the commercial network. So when during that period, there's news in the social media claiming that when they are doing the test, there's 297 birds died due to the high frequency being used in the test. So there's no details given. There's no technology, what called technical details given on this image, and they even have a video talking on that. But then that's very general. There's no scientific proof. There's no technology background on the video. It's just circulating conspiracy saying that the bird is dying because of coincidentally it happened the same period of the time when they do the 5G test. So at that time, the local regulators and also telco, they need to come out and investigate the case. At the end, it found out that it's just a coincidence. The birds died because of other reason. And during that period, there's actually no test being done on 5G at that particular place. So this is then these viral messages, once they get into the social media, what we know, the power of social media now, is being circulated, replicated by different part of the world. So in Italy, they're saying that birds into Italy, and UK also taking pictures saying that bird in UK because of 5G, and India also saying that bird is because of 5G. But all these pictures is not, is what I call a stock image, is not the real image. But then because they claim it and the public believe, and that gets circulated, was shared with their friend. So these become a viral messages, and that cause what I call concern in the community. Okay. The same thing happened not only 5G with the smart meter, for example, when we want to use 5G as a massive IoT platform. It was same concern when we roll out smart meter or smart infrastructure. So people will claim whatever problem they have, leg cramp, eye problem, fatigue, ringing in the ear, problem sleeping, headache, learning problem, heart problem, balance problem, whatever problem you have, it linked to your RF radiation. So this image is the one being circulated in the social media, and public is the one who consume this, and they're the one making their perception based on this information they gather. So we need to address this issue as not only from the ITU side, not only from the WHO side, not only from the regulator side. We as a part of the industry stakeholders, for example, the telco, the researcher, university, and also public agency, we actually need to work hand in hand in order to help to educate the public so that this issue can be what they call handled properly, effectively. Otherwise, you can see there's because of this concern in public and also the power of the public, majority public, you can see the misinformation actually can affect the speed that we roll out 5G or the timeline that we roll out 5G. This is what happened in what they call country, talking on the because of the misinformation, the public gather the information, then they pass it to their MP, their representative, then this get brought into the parliament, and that parliament make a decision to stop 5G based on the misinformation they gathered, okay, that they gathered from the what I call unreliable websites. So this is, the links is given there. You are welcome to go and read further in detail. This is very what I call a critical moment. If we didn't do anything, it will be similar to this. For example, this is in Belgium. There's a movement to call to stop 5G. Then actually at the end, some country, it will have actually effects. So for example, Brussels is the first country who halt 5G pilot projects in Brussels, saying there's moratorium. You cannot implement any 5G unless we confirm there's a what I call no health issue. Then following that, besides stopping the 5G rollout, then there's also movement since LTE, since 4G, there's a movement in some country trying to reduce or trying to introduce strictest radiation regulation. That's mean they want to reduce the radiation level. So currently, most of the country are following the exposure limit guideline provided by ICNIP, the organization suggesting the guideline. But then some country, they say that that limit introduced by ICNIP is too high. Okay, it's still too what called too risky. So they would like to reduce. They would like to reduce the radiation level to let's say 10% from the maximum introduced by ICNIP. So that actually would not able to solve the issue. Later we'll discuss about this. So my point of sharing here is public concern. If we didn't address, it will become a political movement that it will what I call make our 5G plan to roll out. It will impact commercially, socially, and also the national agenda for the broadband strategy. Okay, this is again Swiss Canton blocks 5G mobile rollout. This is more on a local movement to stop 5G. And then this is what I mentioned just now. There's a movement since 4G time when we roll out more base station. When small cell is being introduced in 4G, that means people see more base stations. At that time, there's a movement in different countries trying to limit the reference level or the emission level for the RF exposure limit. This is a paper from Professor Haimazar. It's a very good paper to read. He do a review of what the strategy taken by different countries. So what is summarized in table 6 of the paper, the front paper mentioned just now, you go to paper, table 6. It summarized the revision that's being done or introduced by different countries. For example, the strategy, PD here is power density. That means a parameter that we can measure. A parameter describe the characterize the exposure level in terms of power density from the base station. Then SAR is the near field. That means this is the parameter to measure the radiation from the mobile UE, from the mobile devices when users are very close to the radiation source. PD is usually we use it for base stations when the user is physically further away from the radiation source. So the 100% here is meaning ICNIP level. That means the international dominant standards introduced by ICNIP. US and Japan, there's a trend, they want to relax the base station limit. They want to allow the base station to transmit more, but then they want to restrict the radiation from the SAR level. They want to have a stricter on the SAR level. France and UK and also Korea, they are still following the ICNIP emission level. And Canada, they want to reduce. They also mean, for example, previously is higher. They want to reduce to 59% only. That means previously you can transmit 10, then now you only can transmit 6. So that means your base station will only be able to transmit power. Your cell size will need to be shrink. Okay, China, then you can see the movement when it's quoted in this paper is 8% from what allowed by the ICNIP. So you can see this movement when we want to review, some countries start to introduce a stricter requirement, stricter emission level. That means your base station cannot transmit very high power. Your EIRP cannot be very high. So, but the problem is when we try to introduce or set a limit for stricter ICNIP level, it doesn't matter for 4G or 5G or any other wireless infrastructure, it doesn't help to relieve the public concern or RFEMF issue, because it doesn't solve the problem, it's just changing the level. Because when you reduce the emission level, that means in order to cover an area, you need to add more base station. You need to add more smaller cell or base station. So that will be, then the public will see more base stations being built surrounding the area and closer to them. Instead of one very tall tower, now it will be a small cell and surrounding them, closer to them. So that wouldn't able to solve the issue unless the city or the country or the region decided not to use 5G at all. That is what they call the total halt of the 5G technology, not to roll out in the country. So we do want that to happen. Either they want to introduce a stricter limit, or they want to say they want to stop 5G. We try to avoid these two scenarios. So because of this, we need to understand why public and how, they are concerned, and how actually what is the root of the problem and how actually we can help. So let's go through, for those familiar with RF radiation, then the information I share in section 2 will be what we call a very basic to you. But then if you are new to this area, then I think this is a very good overview of the whole picture of EMF and health issue problem. Okay, let's go through together. First, let's look at why 5G now raise so many concerns. Why compared to 3G, 2G, 3G, 4G, the response from the public and also from the scientific community or the medical community is much more prominent compared to a previous generation. So in terms of EMF issue, radiation issue, there's three main reasons because of the technology that we implemented or introduced in 5G. The first one is for the first time for mobile communication, for cellular consumer mobile communication, we are using a higher frequency range, millimeter wave. So to public, previously we are using 900 megahertz. We are using 1.8 gigahertz, 2.6 gigahertz. So this is when they compare with the new frequency they want to introduce, for example, 26 gigahertz, 28 gigahertz. To a non-technical background, the public, they will see this is a very, very high frequency. They see it's very high, but then they don't know the whole spectrum. But actually in the whole spectrum, later we'll see actually this frequency is still considered very low frequency. But because when in our use, when the way we present 5G technology, the way we introduce 5G technology to the lay person, we typically use higher frequency range. We use 5G using high frequency. So that higher will cause what called worry in public health. Because they don't know about spectrum, they don't know about frequency. What they know is higher frequency, they will equate to higher radiation. Then the second thing is massive MIMO antenna. So massive MIMO antenna, you must look from the public perception now. Public doesn't know what is antenna actually. They just see a physical antenna. So when you say massive MIMO antenna, that means what they see is you have many antenna. When you have many antenna, that means you have many radiation to a general public. So then again is the way we present this information or the way they read this information in social media or in when they search for this information. But then we know that massive MIMO antenna, especially applicable for higher frequency millimeter wave, the dimension is actually the antenna is very small. What we call the size of the antenna is relatively small compared to one antenna element is relatively small compared to lower frequency. But then the public is not in the technical background, they don't know about this. What they hear is only massive MIMO antenna. So massive, higher. And lastly is the beam forming. Beam forming is also another misunderstanding or the way we present the information and that cause a concern in the general public. We say that some of the presenters will present saying that our 5G base station will be like a spotlight. 5G base station will be like a spotlight where you go, it will shoot you. That's when you get a higher energy. So to a general public, that means I go everywhere or being what we call shadowed or being exposed to very high technology, a very high radiation because of these beam forming issues. So these actually, if we know the technology, then we understand actually is actually the radiation level actually is much lower because the energy is focused on you. I don't need to transmit so high. But then public don't have these technology background. They are not going to read about the technical paper on this. What they hear is higher frequency, massive MIMO antenna, then beam forming, spotlight, focusing on me. So this is the one who create concern among the community, okay, cross concern, especially on the general public. So, but then if we go and investigate the background, this is for those haven't studied about RF EMF radiation and health issue. Starting from introduction of 2G, at that time, people start to worry about the radiation level from the base station and also mobile phone. At that time, still the focus is on the mobile phone when we introduced 2G time. So there's many research being conducted, either scientific research, medical research, or biological research All these researchers are being compiled and also studied and analyzed by WHO. So there's a group of person, a group of experts studying these issues. So based on these researchers that they review, the findings that they review, the information we can gather is being gathered. We can go and refer. It's in the EMF portal. If you are interested to find out all the papers related to EMF and health issue, you can go to this portal, and this portal is being hosted by a university, but then it's endorsed by WHO. So there's a lot of publication there, and you can find out all the information there. Just the gist of it, that's mean the conclusion, the statement given by WHO to date about EMF issue. So I quote from WHO. WHO says current evidence. So WHO doesn't make statement based on guessing, doesn't make statement based on I think or should be. WHO makes statement based on scientific proof. So they say current evidence does not confirm the existence of any health consequences. So this evidence is not one case, it's not two cases, it's not three cases, but then it's more than 15 to 20 years and a lot of research paper being done at different countries. So from all this evidence, they didn't show any what we call existence of health consequences from exposure to low-level electromagnetic field. So the keyword here is low level, because in our commercial 5G network, 4G network, 2G network, 3G network, our exposure level is actually, when you accumulate all, actually is still very low level. So later I'll show some measurement results. The only impact, the only biological impact on human being when we're being exposed to 5G base station or 4G base station is tissue heating. So tissue heating is the principal mechanism of interaction between radio frequency energy and the human body. So the conclusion here is there's no any evidence of the health consequences. Then the only biological impact is tissue heating. Okay, the tissue heating. What do we mean by this? We'll shortly look at the biological mechanism, how our body react to a radiation. So in order to understand that, the general public, we need to let the general public know through our own effort. For example, you have a telco, then you have your social media platform to share this information. If you are research and what I call entity, then you have your, you may be putting this in your paper, you may be putting this in your website to educate the public about this issue. And then regulators have also their public education strategy. So actually the 5G, 4G, 3G, all these signal that we are using every day, actually is a form of electromagnetic wave. So it's a form of electromagnetic wave, meaning that in a very simple sense, you have electric wave. You imagine electric sine wave moving together with a magnetic wave perpendicular to each other, then they are moving in straight line together. So that is what I call electromagnetic wave, and it's not man-made, it exists in nature. A human being, when we radiate energy, actually we are just converting the field from one field to another field. We are converting the energy from one format to another format. We didn't create the electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic field wave exists in nature. Then depends on the frequency, of the electromagnetic wave, we can classify that into a field family. So what you can see here, starting from above 0 Hertz to, that is, if you have 0 Hertz, that's static electric field or static magnetic field. That's not electromagnetic wave yet. But you're above 0 Hertz, then you are starting, we can call that electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave can be, when we have starting one where we are interested is an RF. So RF is between 3 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. The range of electromagnetic wave within this frequency range, we give it a name as a RF EMF. Because why we call it RF EMF? Why we call it radio frequency? Because we use this range for radio communication. So we call it radio frequency. It's a frequency being used for radio communication. So radio frequency. So from 3 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. So we use it for our TV, our AM, FM radio, our amateur radio, our mobile phone, our microwave oven, our satellite, our point-to-point microwave link. All those things are fall within RF energy. Before RF energy, we have our AC current. In Malaysia, we have AC current with 50 hertz. That is the frequency of the wave. Then in some countries, they have 60 hertz. So that is the frequency of the AC current at that country. Above RF, we have infrared. Then we have visible light. Then above visible light, we have UV. Then we have X-ray. Then we have the radioactive sources. That's mean the nuclear radiations. So you can see all these classification, all this wave is electromagnetic wave, but then we can divide them according to their frequency. And because we use the frequency for different purposes, so we can classify them according to application. Because wave, in general sense, in a very general layperson sense, the higher frequency you go, the stronger the energy of the wave. That's when the wave has a higher energy. So we can divide that into two types based on their energy level. So for the green color one, we call it non-ionizing radiation, because the energy for this group, for these sections, from visible light and below, their energy level is relatively low compared to the red color one, ionizing radiation. These are the one where have a very high energy. That means the radiation wave, the energy contained in the wave is much higher. So remember only three types: UV, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma ray, or we call radioactive sources. So if you still remember, if we expose to UV sunlight, the UV in the sunlight for for a prolonged period, the UV level is very high, we might be able to get skin cancer. So that cancer is caused by UV radiation. X-ray, when we go to X-ray, if you have experience going to hospital, we take an X-ray imaging. So usually the X-ray only done for seconds. We cannot expose for X-ray for a very long time. And sometimes you didn't do X-ray multiple times per day. The doctor will ask you to come back again a few days to do another imaging. So because X-ray, if you are exposed in very high dosage, in a very short time, a very high energy dosage, you might they might have what called damages to our DNA. That will cause cancer in long term. Then gamma ray, that's mean nuclear bomb, nuclear leakage from the nuclear reactor. Those are the gamma ray in this, they are the highest energy, and they actually can cause cancer. So this three type is the one which is dangerous. The one below, starting from visible light, we are being exposed to sunlight every day. Okay, we are being exposed to sunlight since we are born. So that is a type of radiation as well. So it's an electromagnetic wave radiation. The same type of radiation, the same what we call type of wave as our radio wave. And the frequency is much, 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 much higher compared to RF. So that's what I mentioned just now. When we say we are using higher frequency for 5G, for us, we understand is 26, 28 gigahertz. But to a public, they will think that very high. But then when we look in perspective, in the whole range of electromagnetic wave, RF energy that we're being used today is much, much, much lower. It's still very low frequency compared to other non-ionizing radiation. So what happened when we are exposed to low energy wave, and what happened when we are exposed to high energy wave? Low energy wave, that means non-ionizing radiation. Non-ionizing radiation, imagine this is our molecule. That means our body is made of molecule. So we have nucleus, we have a neutron and also proton, and we have an orbiting electron. So when in a normal condition, there will be balance between there will be balance of the charge happening in this molecule, what we call atom. Okay, but then when you have an external energy, excitation energy coming from non-ionizing radiation, for example, our 4G, our 5G radiation from the handphone or the base station. What happened is energy of the wave will cause, when it hit on the electron, it will cause our electron to vibrate. Okay, that is when we hit by the wave, similar to when we are hit by sound wave. we will feel the sound wave coming. So, but then that is sound wave. This is electromagnetic wave we cannot see. Then, but then we will feel the impact when our cell will vibrate. The electron will vibrate. But the vibration is what we call the energy is low. So it only vibrate, then still tied to the electron orbit. But then when the energy is high, that means now it's UV, X-ray or gamma ray. What happens is when we expose to these higher energy radiation. So this higher energy radiation, you can see when we are being exposed to X-ray, very high dosage, or be exposed to nuclear leakage, nuclear radiation, our electron will get expelled. That means our electron will get off the orbit. Then you can see there's an imbalance happen here. Originally they are balanced, but now they are imbalanced already. When there's imbalance, it's always not good for human body. When we lost what we call electron, or we didn't have equal balance. So this is what we call ionized. Then this atom is being ionized because it's lost one electron, lost one negative charge. Compared to these non-ionizing radiation, is still a neutral neutral atom because it didn't lost any electron. It is still a neutral atom. So this is what I call non-ionizing radiation, as compared to ionizing radiation, because the radiation caused the atom to become a ion. This is what I call ionized. So what's the impact of being ionized on in long term to human body? So we can see when we are exposed to the electron, imagine the electron just now, the electron here, when it's vibrate, that means it's kinetic energy. So kinetic energy will convert into thermal. Okay, when we kinetic, we run, then we are sweating because we have heat generated, the what we call energy conversion happen. So this is the what mentioned by WHO just now. The only what we call biological impact proven today due to the radiation from the mobile base station is tissue heating. Tissue heating, that means when our electron being hit by 4G, 5G or 2G radiation signal, our electron vibrate. When it vibrate, that energy will change into, that kinetic energy will change into a thermal heat. Then that thermal heat will cause temperature to increase. So it depends on how close you are to the base station. So typically, as a normal consumer, the level that we're exposed to is the 5G, 4G, or 3G signal that we're exposed to is very, very low. So we didn't feel any what we call significant temperature increase because of the base station. Why we use handphone, especially when we do voice call, when we put our phone on the ear, we feel heat. So that main reason is because of the battery and also because of the electronic heat, what's called circuit running. It's not because of the radiation itself. Okay, that is the main dominant reason. Is because of the electronics components. When you are exposed to ionizing radiation, and we say just now the atom become ionized, become ionized. What happened is our cell will change. It's because it's not balanced already. So our DNA structure will change because of the ionization. Okay, because of the ionizations, there's what called DNA structure will change. Then that DNA structure will change. That means the cell is become a dead cell. When the dead cell or the mutated cell, or dead cell or mutated cell, and that cell, we know that is not balanced already. That means it lack of one electron. So what you do, you will try to get back to balance. So he will try to search for electron from the neighbor cell. Then the neighbor cell will get affected because the neighbor cell will lose their electron also. So slowly from one cell, one I would call damaged cell or mutated cell, become a tumor. So basically tumor is a group of mutated cell. And that is what we call, when we go to doctor, and doctor will say we detect a tumor, what we say medically is a cancer. So this only happen when with the evidence proven today, only 3 types of radiation can cause this issue: UV, X-ray if you are exposed to very high X-ray, and also nuclear radiation. Then if you are aware, Then IRC is an international agency for research on cancer. Okay, it's a NGO where they gather together and classify the material or phenomena that we expose to every day, which will be which proven very high probability or confirmed a lot of confirmed cases that we can cause cancer. So they classify all the phenomena or material or food that we consume every day, exposed to every day, into 5 categories, starting from group 1. Group 1 is the food phenomena or material in our daily life that is already have a lot of evidence in human study and also animal study has have proven that it will cause cancer. That means probability you get cancer will be very high, starting from group 1. Then we have group 2A. Then group 2A, that means you have it depends on the evidence you gather from the human study and also from animal study. So based on the number of cases that you've seen, the evidence that you've seen, so they classify based on this. So EMF, that means the radiation from base station is classified by IARC in group 2B. Okay, if you read in May 2011, IARC classified radio frequency, electromagnetic wave, electromagnetic field. That means the radiation from handphone, the radiation from mobile phone, including 2G, 3G, 4G, as possibly carcinogenic to human. So the keyword is possibly carcinogenic. Carcinogenic, that means can cause cancer. Okay, possibly carcinogenic to human, group 2B. So based on increased risk of glioma. Glioma is a brain cancer, okay, element related to brain cancer. So when this information is being read by the general public or being used by certain parties circulating this in social media, then people will start to worry. But then if we really understand the IRC classification, what else is in different groups, then we need to put this in perspective to the public. So you can find the information in IRC website. This is the what called summary that I being used for discussion today. You can see the 5 classes starting from group 1 or category 1, then 2A, 2B, 3, and 4. So 4 is the one that's you don't need to worry about it. It won't cause cancer. 1 is you should worry about it or you should avoid. And 2B is in the middle. So category 1 is carcinogenic to human. What is in carcinogenic category 1? So we need to put this IRC classification or family example to the general public. So that means you can make them to put this issue in perspective. Category 1, you have what? You have processed meat in category 1. That means hot dog, burger, our tin food. Those are in class 1. Tobacco is in class 1. Alcoholic beverage in class 1 or category 1. Sunlight is in category 1 because sunlight is the UV element part of it. Then for the one carpentry, the wood dust. So this is example of material that exposed to daily life that is in class or category 1. Then group or class or category 2B, RF is here. What else is in RF? So we have pickled fruits. That means pickled fruits. Aloe vera, where we consume or where we use for cosmetic a lot. Aloe vera is in group 2B. Talcum powder. Talcum powder where we use for baby, the talcum powder. So that is in group 2B as well. Then group 2A, that means 1 class higher than 2B. Red meat is here. So that means our beef, our lamb chop, those are the things is in group 2A. So the public need to be understand about this, so they know when they can see this, they will put that in perspective. So that means because a lot of people is still consuming meat every day. They are still exposing to sunlight every day. So if they are really concerned about their health, if they really want to protect their health, they should worry about class category 1 and category 2A first before they worry about category 2B. Previously, category 2B coffee is also in category 2B because of the caffeine. So now recently they revised and moved coffee to group category 3. So there's a saying in the industry saying that RF radiation is dangerous as drinking a cup of coffee. So that is the same when we have coffee in group 2B. So this is information when public concern about IRC. This is we need to know. Public concern is because of what they read, saying that IRC say EMF is group 2B. But they didn't read the other details. They just want to say EMF is, or radiation from the base station is group 2B. Then they start to worry already. But if they understand group 2B is in the middle, there are more what call higher priority they should concern about, then these will put in the perspective. So they will understand. Okay. Then lastly is some of the public will feel that telco can build base station and can also turn on whatever power they like. They can do whatever they like. But actually there's what I call a very strict SOP or procedure available from the international to the regional to the national level in managing or limiting the RF EMF exposure. So there's a lot of documentation and also standard guidelines available and also procedure what need to be done to ensure that we, even though RF EMF is safe, but we don't want to overexpose. We don't want to overexpose. So that's why there's a lot of strategy available, starting from standards. There's a lot of the standard or guideline available that we can refer to. Then after you check on the emission level, then regulator, spectrum regulator or local authority will set exposure limit. So they'll say you cannot, when you want to build a base station in Malaysia, for example, you cannot overexpose certain limit when we do measurement. So there's also a local authority regulation on that. Then after that, if you are overexposed, or the regulator will go to do a spot check, do a monitoring of the exposure level, whether the telco comply or not comply with the standard just now, the requirement just now. So there's a measurement base or the prediction base for us to do that. And lastly, if the RF exposure is exceeded, so we can apply mitigation technique, how we can do that. So there's also guideline to how to overcome that problem. So these, if you go in detail, the slides, if we look at different organizations, I'm not going to go into detail. The slides here is provided as a guideline and also informations, because we today we are not going to talk about the EMF in very detail. It will be this will be introductory course, introductory module. In October, we have a specific module talking, specific course talking on 5G EMF and how actually we can help to address the public concern. So that we welcome participants if you are interested in the EMF matters. We have a course in October where we talk in very detail on EMF issue. So if you look at the relevant authority setting the limits, that means who set the limits, even though it's safe, but we don't want to overexpose. So who set the limits? So for the telco to follow. So we have the guideline from the international institution, we have ICNIP. So this is the most what I call accepted, or most the one adopted by countries worldwide. Is ICNIP. The latest guideline is published in 2020. Okay, the latest edition version, including 5G, is published in 2020. IEEE also recently updating their what I call documents. The document you want to refer to is to IEEE C95.1. So they provide what I call limit. So that's mean talking on different frequency, what is the maximum you can go. So there's an effort to harmonize between ICNIP and IEEE. So if you go and read, they are very, even though they are issued by different organizations, their limits is what I call similar. Then that is guidelines for non-specific, will be general for all EMF radiation sources and for all covering from 100 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. But for telecommunication community, we have guidelines from ITU. So ITU have a special study group under the recommendation published under K series. So if you want to look for EMF issue, you want to look for standard or recommendation, you go to ITU, ITUT study group 5, the document series is K series. The guideline, for example, here, the K52 is the main guideline talking on the limit, okay, of the exposure. Local authority, it depends on local authority. Some local authority or spectrum regulator, they will endorse the one being introduced by either ITU or being introduced by ICNIP or IEEE. And some, for example, in some country now, they do want to follow ICNIP, they do want to follow IEEE, they do want to follow ITU. They want to introduce their own stricter requirement. This is happening in some city, local authority introduce their own standard for their own city, or some European country, they want to introduce for the whole nation a stricter requirement. They don't want to follow the international standards. They want to have their own stricter requirement. For this is example for Malaysia. Malaysia, our national spectrum regulator, so they have a mandatory standard for our telco to follow. Malaysia is following a recommendation from ITU, which indirectly following ICNIP and also comply with IEEE and also comply with the recommendation from WHO. So that is what we have in Malaysia. Then in terms of, okay, after you have the limit, ICNIP doesn't say how you should make sure you reach that level or how you should comply with that, how you do measurement. The measurement technique is not mentioned in this, what we call ICNIP and IEEE. So the measurement, so that's why there's some organization will be publishing document on how to comply with the standards, how we do measurement or how we do prediction, what is the method to use. So we have from IEC, then we have from IEEE, then we from ITU also in the K series document, for example, K61, K91 is talking, providing a guideline on how to do measurement and prediction. So the public doesn't know that we have all these standards and also guidelines and also rules and regulation to regulate the industry. And besides at the international level, national level also some depends on the country. For example, in Malaysia, we have an industry forum under our one of our co-organizers for this course, MTFSB, Malaysia Technical Standard Forum Berhad. Recently, they published a technical code for the industry to follows on how to do how to comply with the mandatory standards of EMF radiation, how to do prediction and also measurement. So that technical code is being reviewed now. It soon will be published by the regulator. Then we also have standard also guideline from the local authority. For example, in our spectrum regulator, there's a guideline on how to comply with the mandatory standard. So our regulator is a very good approach. They provide the limit. Then they at the same time, they also provide a guideline, how you should comply, how to make sure you comply with the limit, what you should do to make sure you comply with the limit. That's from our regulator. Then WHO doesn't issue any limit or guideline on the limit, and WHO doesn't tell you how to do measure. But then WHO, his what we call role is more on providing evidence, saying there's no link between EMF to cancer, and also providing information for us to talk to the public, and also provide information on how we can build, construct policy related to EMF. So if you can look EMF, there's under WHO, there's a project starting since 1996. It's still an active project, international EMF project, gathering experts from all over the world on how to educate and help the industry in EMF related issue. So we have a handbook. This handbook will shortly cover a little bit on the content. We are not going to go into detail. The content will go into detail when we in the October course. And lastly, we also they provide handbooks on how to make EMF policy. This is more relevant for regulator or local authority, which set guideline for the industry. So all this information we should, just now we mentioned talking about the basic of EMF spectrum, the whole spectrum. Actually, there's a low energy, there's high energy, there's a dangerous radiation, there's safe radiation. The information about how the industry being regulated, the information about IRC classification, all those information when general public read, no one is viralizing that messages. We should viral that messages so public will aware about the facts, not what I believe or what I hear or what I think. It's based on facts that we can should spread it out so that we can increase public awareness, so they're able to make decisions based on scientific facts and not mythos or hearsay. So in terms of public education, establishing a dialogue is very important. We shouldn't assume that public will not want to hear what we say. We cannot assume that public, they are not able to make their own decision when we provide them scientific proof. So we should try to communicate. So when we try to communicate, there's important elements that we need to gather. So the details here as provided as an overview information to you guys. The details we'll discuss in one specific module talking on communication in October later, talking on how to do effective EMF communication. The information here is extracted from the handbook provided by WHO on effective EMF risk communication. So you can see when we want to talk about EMF risk communication, it's not straight away go to talk to public. There's many preparation or information that we need to gather first, or skill that we need to gather first. So this is the what we call outline of it. Please go through as your reference. Then when we talk to the public or the concerned community, so what actually we can bring to that? So we can talk about technology and engineering. This is the first part I mentioned just now, talking on the spectrum. What is electromagnetic wave? What is the spectrum? Then to let them know EMF radiation actually exists in nature. Sunlight is an EMF radiation, and the frequency is much higher than radio wave. Then we also need to talk about how mobile base station work, how mobile phone work, why we need to put the base station at a high level, why we need so many base stations. Because public concern, when they complain there's no coverage, there's no capacity. But if you want to build a base station, they'll complain they don't want base station because they don't know how the technology, what they call operate. They are not the expert in the area. So we should bring this information. We can share it in our in a passive mode. That means we share it in our social media, or during active engagement, face-to-face or online engagement, we can share this information. Biological and medical proof evidence, not based on hearsay. We can bring whatever information that WHO gathered, then we can share with them. And lastly, we share with them regulation and compliance. So there's a regulation in place, even though it's safe, but then we still don't want to overexpose. There's a regulation and also rules to help us to make sure the industry comply. So let the public know they are protected, someone taking care of their safety. So this information is the one that we can bring to the public engagement, also public education platform. So the handbook here is the one I mentioned, proposed by WHO. So this is an effort between WHO and also ICNIP and also the industry stakeholders. They have a discussion conference in 1997 and 1998. They sit together and from experts all over the world, sharing the experience how to handle the issue. So the handbook is available for free. You can search for this title in your search engine. Then you can download it from WHO website. That is a very good book. It's provided for free. So recommend you guys to go and download. So what actually, we just have a very quick overview what is in the, what they call the handbook itself. So the handbook telling us that you want to do a risk communication effectively, you should prepare first before you talk to the public, or now, starting from now, we expect 5G will have some resistance. So we should start to build up our capability first in order to address the public issue, public concern. So you must understand the challenges. You need to do risk assessment, risk perception, risk management. Then we need to understand what's happening at different, at the global level, the resistance at the global level, how they handle that issue, why they complain about that, regional level and also local level. Then we need to build our competency, scientific expertise. That means if you don't have what they call, for example, we are a telco, then we want to talk to the public. So we need to know who should we bring together, which medical doctor, which scientist, which researcher we can bring together with us when we talk to the concerned public. Communication skill, again, because human beings are talking with each other, communication skill sometimes is not what you say, but how you say. So that's communication skill. Then corporate and regulatory judgment. So how the SOP, how we handle public complaint, how we address the timeline and the SOP. So those are the things that we need to set in place now. Okay, so this is relevant to telco, this is relevant to regulator, this is relevant to local authority handling public complaint. So we can refer to this handbook, and the handbook talks in details on all these elements. I'll just provide you a snapshot in these slides you can refer to. We don't have enough time to go through the details because this itself is a full module. Okay, the communication itself is a full module. So you can see challenges, competency, context. Later, when I share the example from a regulator, how they do, this will be in that slide as well. So I'll just browse through so you can have a glance, and the slide is with you. You can use it for your future reference. So you need to understand how public perceive the problem. Why? Some because of the age, the gender, the education background, and the available information, the social media movement, then the familiarity with technology. So you can see the resistance to 5G is less at Korea, at Japan. We seldom hear there's any 5G resistant there, or EMF radiation resistant there, because they are advanced. The public from very young to senior, they are very familiar with technology. They rely on technology in their daily life. So when a new technology being implemented, they are happy with the application being introduced. So they become less worried about the radiation points. So this is, we need to understand their what I call concern perceptive depth. Then after we prepare, that means the 3C. The 3C is we need to understand challenges. That means how we measure radiation level, how public see the problem, and how actually we manage. That means any rules and regulation available. So we need to address the challenges. Second C is competency, scientific expertise, our communication skill, our regulatory judgment. That means our team should have someone expert in this area. And in terms of context, whether we understand this issue, 5G complaint or 5G resistance is not local to your place. The same thing happened elsewhere. So how that's similar to your problem and how they solve the problem. So we need to understand as well. So we have a perspective. Then also we can share this with the general public. The Korea has very, what I call, roll out 5G very early. Then they already have what I call a very wide coverage. Then there's no issue of saying cancer cases increase daily. So we should share that information with the general public. So after we have these 3C ready, then the handbook will tell us on how the process. We gather all our competency and our knowledges and our expertise. Now talking on process, when, with whom, what, and how. So if you go to the handbook, it will provide a lot of questions and also explanation in the handbook. I'm not going to go through in detail. So this is when to communicate. Are you going to communicate immediately, or you will set a timeline, or you go to see one-to-one first, then you set a group meeting, how to do that, when. With whom to talk to. Are you going to talk to the local leaders? Are you going to talk to the local, who is the one have the influence in that community? And or you're going to talk directly to the one who complained. So there's many pros and cons greatly analyzed in the handbook. Then
this will have another 5 more minutes left.
Okay, thanks. Then in the what they call to whom communicate, in the handbook it provide who should we engage with, who should be in the loop when we're going to talk about the EMF issue, and what to communicate. So this is when you go to talk to them, what message we should bring. Okay. So this is the evidence, policy, understand how the concern. This is what I mentioned just now, the 3 material that we need to talk about when we talk to the general public. And lastly is how to communicate. What tone should we prevail, online, face-to-face, or one-to-one, or a group, or town hall. So there's many pros and cons analyzed in detail in the handbook. Okay, so lastly, what I showed just now is there's resistance to 5G, and a lot of this resistance is due to misinformation. So we need to share this information based on facts to the general public through public education. So I'll provide 2 simple case studies on what the regulator, from the regulator perspective, how they do public education. When they want to roll out new technology, how they do EMF, how they manage the EMF concern issue. So what I share, the first one is from our local regulator, MCMC, Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission. So it's the one is our spectrum regulator, the one regulating the telecommunication industry. So what they have is, in terms of the effort to do public education, they have the public engagement and seminar and dialogues. That means for different stakeholders, they have sometimes talk EMF to industry. For example, now for the past 2019 to 2020, preparing for 5G. So they perceive they will be resistant to 5G. So MCMC already started what they call 2 rounds of training to local authority, and to also for the industry stakeholders, and also to the government agency, talking about EMF and also 5G, what's the relationship, and also health issue. So that is the one specific for industry. Then they also have talks to general public. Okay. Then they have also prepared public accessible info stations. So public can go, instead of they see messages in social media, we can direct them to this website. So MCMC have booklet, MCMC have a brochure, have online platform, have apps, so that can refer to. I will go shortly. Local, then they will do also local research on EMF and health, because a lot of, especially when the standard is not being derived in our country. For example, ICNIP is based in Germany, then WHO is not based in Malaysia. So a lot of people saying that all these standard, all these regulations being published or being introduced at overseas, it might be different than for our exposure to radiation might be different. Malaysian or local people exposure to EMF, our response may be different. So that's one of the key concerns of the public. So what MCMC do, what our regulators do is they provide funding and also partnership in doing local research, okay, on EMF measurement, on EMF issue. So the information on the slides is the example of these 3 elements being conducted. Okay, for example, here talking about the risk assessment, how they do risk assessment, how they do monitoring, how they risk management, what is the policy available at the regulator for Malaysia, and how they address the public issue. So you can see this is the mandatory standard for Malaysia. So you can read the details. So that means there's a, in terms of management of the MCMC have policy to regulate. Then they also have guidelines for the industry to comply. They have a standards. At the same time, they guide the industry how you should comply with the standards. So there's also a document on that. And how to do when you want to apply for a base station to be built. So in the guideline, it mentioned you need to do a simulation. So there's a simulation guideline provided. Then when there's a complaint, or from time to time, the regulator will do measurement. So there's a SOP available to do measurement, and how to do measurement. That measurement information, the summary, will be shared to the public. Okay, this is on the measurement. Then they will share this information. For example, this is what they do with our university. They do what they call long-term monitoring of the EMF radiation. This is a rooftop site. We have many base stations there from different telco. Then we monitor the radiation level for 24 hours. Then you can see the red color is ICNIP level. Our actual exposure from when we gather from all the base stations here is still very low, less than 10% from the maximum. Okay, so that means this is rooftop. So it's already very low. Not then when we are further away, it will be much lower. Then this is an example, the evidence we do measurement throughout different state area. We do Penang, we do central region, Kuala Lumpur, and we also do at Johor Bahru, the southern region. So from all these measurement, MCMC will, this is local research, they will share with the, through publication, through journal papers. So we can see actually our exposure level, we focus on the last column here. 100% is a ICNIP safety limit, but we only reach, for example, 3.22%, 2.95%, 6%, 4%, 3% from the maximum. So that means our actual exposure level is very, very low, even though we have many base stations surrounding us. This is an example of the measurement that being shared. Okay. That advocacy program, that means how they do public training. So this is the website. You can go to the link. You can see this is the website specifically built for EMF issue by our regulator. So they work together with ITU. So you have website and also you have app you can download in your smartphone. So all that will talk about technology, EMF issue, health issue, what WHO say, how we regulate, all information, and what research being done locally is all gathered in this app or website. Okay. Then they also shared from the research, they shared brochure. So they will distribute it in different what we call events to the general public. Then this is free talk to industry and also stakeholders and also public. This is research done with different university. So you can read about the details in the papers. Okay. And lastly, this is example from UK. UK have the same strategy. They do public education a lot. And another key point, which the strong point of regulator in UK, they do a lot of consultation with the public. For example, when the 5G comes, people start to worry. So they propose to a revise of their mandatory standard for EMF issue. So they release, after they review the what they call guidelines or regulation, they ask the public to review. So this is their guideline, their paper structure. You can actually go and download from their website. Then they do public engagement. They tell this is how we do, this is our standard, and this is how we plan to do it. Then ask for public consultation. So they ask for public consultation, and all this information we can find from their website, how they do consultation with the public. And lastly is they also do measurement. This is year 2020. A lot of people concerned about 5G base station being implemented in the UK. So they do measurement. So from the measurement is less than you can see very low compared to the economic level, less than 1%. Because at that time, the base station is only very transmitting, not at the full power. Okay, from this, I think we cover, within 1 hour plus, we cover the public concern or public resistance to the 5G and why, and how actually we can help. So effective and transparent communication, dialogue is very important. So everyone should play their roles, not only the regulator, not only local authority, but everyone have a role to play. Then we should start to equip ourselves with the, especially if you are telco or regulator or local authority, we should start to equip ourselves with the 3C indicated in the handbook. So our competency, understanding the challenges, and also understanding what happened at the world and regional state on this issue. So with that, I end my presentation. And again, I would recommend you guys, if you are interested in this 5G EMF issue, there's a course in October under ITU COE program as well. Welcome to join that program. Then we can talk about this EMF issue in details. The whole course is about EMF issue. Okay, so that's from me. Thank you very much for your attention. And I think there's a lot of questions in the chat box. Then we'll try to answer. Okay, I'll pass back to you, Dr. Omar. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chua Tien for a very informative presentation. I believe there's a lot of questions coming from the participants. So let's show them first. So Mr. Chua, can you see my slide?
Yes, yes.
Okay, wait. Okay, there are many questions there. So I think we'll address one by one. So we go to the first slide with 3 questions. Mr. Chua, maybe you can respond to these queries by our participants.
Okay, we'll go one by one. Mr. Nawaz say, why are there continuous conspiracy against 5G? Why people are raising question against 5G, not other legacy network? So this, I think I mentioned in the slide just now, especially on the beginning or second part, why 5G become a big concern now because of the new technology that we implemented. And when we do, when the news talking about 5G, they always say higher frequency. They always say massive MIMO antenna. They always say beamforming. You get very strong signal. Signal will be focusing on you. That is one reason, because of the keyword that we use, but public doesn't understand what's the background. They only understand you will get higher frequency. In their mind, it's higher exposure. You get massive MIMO antenna. In their mind, is more antenna. Then in their mind, when you talk about beamforming spotlight, that means the energy will follow me everywhere. So all those things will create their concern as compared to 2G, 3G, 4G. It will be very general base station, one sector antenna radiation. So we at that time also frequency, we seldom talk about higher frequency or whatever. At that time, what we talk about is you get more speed, you get more speed, you get more speed, mobile broadband, you get better service. We didn't create the hype on the higher frequency, massive MIMO, sensor networks, all those things, we didn't create that hype. So that might be one of the reasons why they complain about 5G more compared to legacy system. So that's my personal view. Then from Mr. Ibrahim, does 5G wave affect on human eye more than other parts like skin? So of course, our body components, for example, eye, our skin, our bones have different density and a different material. So of course, when we expose to a wave, it will have different intensity on the cell itself. But the key word here is it's already proven. That means with evidence, that means when we expose to 5G radiation, even though 26, 28 gigahertz, then the only impact on human being is cell vibration. So might be you'll say our eye is more fragile than the skin. Then our eye also contain a lot of water's content. Then the vibration will be more. The vibration will be more, but then that vibration doesn't cause any what they call a mutation of the cell, doesn't cause any ionization of the cell. So still it doesn't cause what they call cancer concern there. Okay. Mr. Chong say 1982 Bukit Merah radioactive pollution and nowadays Pahang rare earth refinery not wanted in other Malaysian damage done since then on public trust to be called expert how to restore the faith from the public. So the example quoted by Mr. Chong here, 1982, this is radioactive pollution. So that means this is ionizing sources. This is totally different with this is totally different compared to our radiation from the base station. Because the radiation sources, the radiation level from the nuclear is very high, and it's already proven. That means it's already a public knowledge that nuclear radiation will cause cancer. And what will happen in the World War II, we already have a good evidence that. So there's no hiding of the information there. There's no misunderstanding there. So how does we public trust to be called expert? So this is the issue now here is they need to differentiate. There's two types of radiation, it's not one type of radiation. We need to understand also sunlight is a type of radiation. We are being exposed to it every day. And frequency is much higher than 5G. Okay. Next, Mr. Ng, US is allowing 133% power density for base station, which is higher than ICNIP recommendation. Will that pose a risk to health? So firstly is from the measurement just now, you can see the actual exposure when we have 100% ICNIP, when we have a lot of base stations surrounding us, 2G, 3G, 4G, all those accumulated, you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, remote control, satellite TV. When all those accumulate, it's still very low compared to the ICNIP 100%. So now US is allowing more than what I call the ICNIP 100%. So still that means your exposure level is still the same. The maximum level, you won't be able to reach 100%. It's very difficult for you to reach 100% ICNIP unless you are very close to the base station. Okay. Even for occupational health, you have different standards. You have a more stricter requirement for occupational guideline. The level is much stringent. So that also is very difficult to reach that level. So the answer is my personal view is there won't be any what you call concern on the health issue because of the revising of the limit. Why 5G go for 26 and not higher? What are those contradictions? So why 5G go for 26, not higher? We are going for higher. Higher is wait for 6G. So actually there's already active research on terahertz, how to use 60 gigahertz and above for our 6G communication. So we are going for higher frequency, but we're going step by step because of the electronics, because of the design of the hardware. They need time to mature for higher frequency. The higher frequency you go, the more difficult for you to design the hardware. That's why now we move to the range at the millimeter wave. Then why millimeter wave? Because that is the vacancy slot where we have one large chunk of unused spectrum. Okay. Fatima, how do we convince the community 5G is safe? Referring to the WHO statement alone is not sufficient. What is the government role in dealing with the resistance? How to explain this to those who have no technical knowledge? So I think this, for Fatima, I already mentioned the strategy in the public education part. So that's the thing that we can do. And also I already shared what our Malaysia regulator is doing in terms of education, in terms of the documents they are publishing, they are referring to. So regulation that they put in place. So I think that already answered in last part of the presentation.
Yes, correct. Answered already.
Okay. Then Mr. Ibrahim, what about 5G coming to us from Starlink, the satellite that will be in the ionosphere all the time? So if we understand the issue of EMF spectrum, sunlight is, we are exposed to sunlight all the time as well. Sometimes we didn't see sunlight, but then the wave is still reached to us, just that we cannot see it. So the same thing is satellite. Satellite is above us. Even though 5G, we don't have 5G, we still have satellite. We have for video broadcasting. We have satellite for GPS. We have a satellite for military usages. So 5G using Starlink providing 5G services is not a new satellite. It's not a new thing. So I don't think we need to concern about that issue now. And important thing is from satellite, the frequency is still RF, still radio frequency. Still the frequency range is considered as ionizing, non-ionizing radiation. That means a safe radiation. Will there be specification to determine the RF emission level from base station? Are there any audit to measure the actual emission? If yes, are these audit theoretical? I think this I shared in the last part what MCMC do. If you are referring to Malaysia, yes, there's a specification. That means the mandatory standard for telco. You cannot transmit above this level. MCMC is following ITUT recommendation, which is indirectly following ICNIT and also IEEE. So there's a maximum that you can follow. Then at the same time, also MCMC will do, before you build a base station, telco need to submit a report, a simulation report of their emission level. What is the ICNIT level, whether their emission level, their compliance, what's the zone that is not safe. So they need to prove your zone is not safe. You won't be overexposed your ICNIT radiation first. Then you're allowed to build your base station. After you build a base station, MCMC will do periodical, what we call spot check as well, or monitoring. And also when there's a public concern, public complaint, MCMC will engage someone to do measurement as well. So there's a way to do measurement. So I think it's a very good, interesting, if you come for the October module, we'll talk in details on this one, how we do a measurement. Is there any penalty if telco is found to be operating the base station with power higher than the mandatory standard? If yes, what will be the penalty? So that is a document called mandatory standard. Mandatory standard, that means you must follow. If you are not following, then you can go and read the details of the mandatory standard. So the mandatory standard, I shared the link in the slides already. You can go and find. I'm not sure how much the penalty is. When we say mandatory standard, that means there's a rules you must follow. If you didn't follow, there will be consequences. So you can refer to the mandatory standard for the details. Because in the mandatory standard, I don't think they talk about Ringgit Malaysia or in terms of monetary what called penalty. Mr. Lim, how MCMC ensure the equipment MNO operate meet EMF guidelines? So the equipment, when we talk about EMF radiation, so when importing the document into, we're importing the equipment, not only MNO equipment, including our handphone, when they want to sell in the market, the first thing they need to do EMF compliant test first before they can actually sell that in the market. So whatever they sell, they already tested, the model they tested, and also they'll pick sample to test. When imported into Malaysia, so Serum have our Malaysia, Serum is the one checking on the equipment side. So they will check if it's a RF component, they work together with MCMC. So if required, there's no recognized lab report on the EMF test. If there's already a recognized worldwide certified lab report on the EMF issue, then they can import. If they don't have, then they want to import, CIRIM will do tests, will engage a research lab to do measurement. For example, for mobile phone, our lab has a lab being engaged by CIRIM to do the measurement from the SAR measurement from the mobile base station before you can actually import and sell in a local market. So MCMC is working together with CIRIM on this issue to make sure whatever imported is already following need to comply with the EMF regulation. If there's no lab report available, they need to do the test. IoT devices in high quantity with mesh connection will be very close to human in proximity day and night. Is the government started to look at the EMF of these devices to make sure they are safe to us? So at this stage, there's at the international level, what I see is in the IAC, there's a working group talking on EMF radiation from the massive devices. That means sensors network or body area network. They are looking into this area. So the same, because they are closer to us, so there's included in the SAR measurement criteria. So there is international level, there's organization looking into the impact and how to regulate and those other things. And in Malaysia, I think the working group, the MTOSB working group at this moment is focusing on base station, 5G base station. The smart devices, I think there's a technical group in CIRIM is talking about this issue. Okay, so I think there is movement to regulate the smart sensor network. Next. Is Malaysia had did any study to prove that EMF levels set by IGNIT is total safe to human? I believe WHO has did the study on this matter, but is there any agency who verified on this matter? So is Malaysia doing any study to prove that EMF levels set by IGNIT is totally safe to human being? So in Malaysia, first is to do medical studies. I think there's a university doing medical studies on biological impact. Then our university, we do more on, because we are engineering university, we do more on measure the level that we are exposed to. WHO did the research is not, when the research is not done by WHO themselves, some of the project they are involved and some of the project they collect from the researcher all over the world. Of course, when they want to review their result, there will be a very stringent process that will go to make sure the project, the local research is trustworthy. The research is done in a proper manner. So it's not WHO do themselves. There's a project that WHO involved. There's also research being done by other researchers outside of WHO. Then that information is being reviewed by WHO, then they compile together. So here to the conclusion being made by WHO is not based on WHO alone. It's based on researcher and also scientists and also medical community, their findings, then at WHO compile and come up with the conclusion. So that's why it can be based on evidence, not only WHO evidence, but the worldwide scientific community evidence. Okay. So Malaysia, what we did with MCMC or the research done by MCMC, we focusing on measurement. There's a research with a Northern University doing with seeing the biological response from the animals. That means seeing when you're exposed to radiation from the RF sources, how the animal responds. Then they measure the ECG, measure the biological parameters. There's a research being done as well. So there's paper that you can refer to. Why some of modernized countries like Japan, China, Germany, etc. are not allowing the EMF, are not following the EMF limit set by IGNIT. So IGNIT is a guideline, so it's only a recommendation. It's up to the country to choose. So I think Japan, Germany is following IGNIT, and Malaysia is following IGNIT as well. And China, they previously is following IGNIT, but then China, they are revising now because of their what they call concern from the general public or whatever. So there's a reason why they want to revise. For example, in Switzerland now, Switzerland don't want to follow IGNIT because there's a what they call movement in the country saying they don't want to the radiation too high from all these wireless resources, including Wi-Fi, 4G, 3G network, all those things, they want to reduce the emission level. So when they want to reduce the emission level, I mentioned just now, there's a problem. You reduce the emission level, that means you reduce the cell size. You reduce the cell size, that means in order for you to continuous coverage, you need to add more base station. So then public will see more base station. They are concerned about base station, then you add more base station. So it doesn't solve the issue. Okay. So so limiting the emission level is not the good way to go unless you want to totally do want to have mobility. Then it works. Hotspot only. Last question is, which relevant authority can issue letter of confirmation that 5G EMF is not health hazards? So this is the issue letter of confirmation. As I say, WHO is the authority. So WHO is already their statement is already there. So and WHO is recognized by all the what we call a lot of agencies in the world at the international level. So I think that is good enough. But if you want to letter of confirmation, then you need to engage, for example, Ministry of Health. There's a department talking on radiation, so you can talk to Ministry of Health. But then you need to, since WHO already have the statement, they will refer back to what WHO say. Okay, I think that is the last question, is it?
Yeah, correct, Mr. Chua. So thank you very much for all the response. Okay, so again, I'd like to thank Mr. Chua Tien for very informative and very good presentation. So I hope everyone gained many new informations and very much interested, hopefully, to do a long own studies on 5G development as well as its implication and its impact in its deployment to the public. So as a wrap up, so as we move forward with 5G, as well as perhaps new next generation wireless communication technology, we will definitely going to expect there are resistance by the public, okay? And there are going to be many issues that are going to be raised. So all stakeholders, either the technology, the industry players, the regulators, government agencies, telco operators, all need to keep abreast and to be aware of all of these concerns and know how to address them convincingly. So hopefully we could, by being informed well, we could address all of the concerns and try to reduce any misinformation and try to hopefully avoid the spread of any uncalled or information that are not certified by authorities, and we can try to hopefully elevate any of this concern and allow very smooth deployment in the future for 5G and all other communication technologies later on. Okay, so with that, I thank everyone for all the cooperations and also Mr. Chua for the presentations. Okay, just as a reminder to all, we'll have two modules, module 8.1 and 8.2 to be presented in tomorrow's sessions, and we will also have our closing ceremony tomorrow. So hopefully everyone going to come punctually, okay, and attend all the sessions. And I think with that, I'll end my sharing of this session. So I'll pass the slots to the technical host. Okay.
Okay, ready everybody? Okay, smile. Okay, freestyle. Okay. Thank you, everybody.